What up legends, welcome to Nate's Escape. Today we are recording on the Canon M6 Mark II, which I absolutely love. I bought this camera to go alongside this bad boy. This is the Canon EOS R. I felt like this was a little bit too big to lug around for my vlogs and things like that, and I needed something that could be my B-roll camera that was just a little bit more portable. Now, upon purchasing this camera, I realized that there were 5 things that I disliked about it, and I thought these were worth mentioning because there's a lot of videos out there talking about how great this camera is, and I always see these videos where people compare the 90D to this camera, and there were just a few features that I found lacking in this camera that are actually in the 90D. So we're just going to switch over to the EOS R now, and I'm going to show you the 5 things I dislike about this camera. So I'm going to start off with the thing that actually annoys me least about this camera. When you turn this camera on for the first time, you'll see it comes up with this little message, and what that's telling you to do is there's this little switch on the side, and you need to hold that back and turn it to like activate the lens. And I always find myself pulling the switch and then the lens pushes out and hits my hand, so it's kind of annoying. You'd have to kind of use your thumb, and it's just really awkward to use. You get used to it after some time, but I wish that they just didn't have that lock in there, because every time you need to turn on your camera and turn off your camera, it's just another step that you need to take. Now, number 2 is that the screen on the top, once it's actually flipped up to what I'd call like a vlogging mode, it is really hard to touch these buttons in the bottom of the screen. As you can see, the screen's kind of covered up by the top of the camera. So when you go to tap these buttons, you can't really get at them. Like, I just managed to tap one then, but when you naturally flip the screen back to actually be able to try and touch these buttons, you'll see it doesn't take much for everything to flip upside down. So I've kind of learnt how to flip the screen upside down and then use the buttons up the top to change my settings. It's just kind of annoying. I don't know why they didn't make the screen just a little bit higher to fix that problem, or they could have just made the buttons on the actual screen a little bit higher. It's really weird because you can actually see there's those black lines on the bottom of the screen. Let me try focus on something bright so you can see. So it kind of was pointless that the buttons were lower. They could have just pushed them a slight bit up so you could easily tap them. I've also learnt how to quickly edit my settings here on the back, so that's been a little bit of a problem solver. But it's just one thing that I think Canon really should have thought of, and I think it's just really weird. Anyway, now number 3 I find the most annoying. If you look on top here, you can see this dial. There's a C1 and a C2 mode. These can only be set to photography modes. They can't be set to video, which is really frustrating. So when I'm shooting on something like the EOS R, I will actually change C1 to be, say, 24 or 25 frames a second. I'll have face tracking, and I'll also shoot in shutter priority, so it'll automatically expose and do all that good stuff. And I use that for like my vlogging mode. Then I'll set C2 into like 60 frames a second or 50 frames a second, and then I'll have that in single point autofocus with also shutter priority, and then that's just like my slow-mo mode. And then C3, I will set that to 120 frames a second just to get even crispier slow motion. And it just frustrates me that you can't do that in this camera. It's so nice being able to set all your video modes into just custom modes that you can just switch. I find myself always manually changing settings, and on this camera, when you go into like the high frame rate modes, like 120 frames a second, it does this really annoying thing where once you change it to 120 frames a second, you'll think that when you turn it off, it'll remember your original frame rate that you were shooting on and change back to that, but it doesn't. It just always switches back to 60 frames a second. So I find that it takes me like 5 steps to change my frame rate back to my original frame rate. So it's just really annoying if I want to get B-roll in slow motion and things like that. So number 4, I did note it doesn't have a headphone jack in the side. It does have a mic jack, so you can plug a microphone into it, but I love having a headphone jack because it helps when you are doing videos like this. I'll quickly chuck on my headphones and have a listen, and then I'll talk to the camera and it'll just feed back the audio straight to my ears, and I can kind of tell if the audio is being picked up properly or not. It's definitely not a deal breaker, but I thought it was worth mentioning. So last but not least, you actually lose continuous autofocus in 120 frames a second. You do still have manual focus and you do have autofocus up until you hit that record button, but as soon as you hit record, it's gone. So I would definitely set it to manual focus. And something else that I think is pretty cool is they have actually put the manual focus and autofocus switch on the back, so it's right there next to your thumb, and I definitely prefer that over the original way where the autofocus and manual focus switch was on the lens. So I'm actually interested to know what you guys think of this camera. Has anything that I've said today really been a deal breaker for you? Leave me a comment down below and let me know. Also, click the thumbs up if you liked this video in any way, and also subscribe. It really does help out my channel. I hope you guys are staying safe through this crazy pandemic. I know that I'm off work, so I'm gonna have more time to make YouTube videos for the next however long. We actually don't know when we're coming out of level 4. We're not even allowed to leave the house at the moment unless it's for exercise or groceries. So probably better for this channel because I ain't going anywhere for a while. Anyway, don't know why I'm still talking. Have a good day.